The elite cadets thought it was impossible, until the human girl tried I open. The alarms are already screaming before I open my eyes, and my hands are moving before my brain catches up. Metal groans somewhere above me. The floor tilts just slightly, the way a floor should never tilt, and I know without checking that the gravity stabilizers on this ring have failed again. This is the Kasari Gauntlet. Nobody warned me it would start like this. I am Mira Voss, cadet number 214 of the Coalition Fleet Academy, and in exactly 4 seconds a wall of compressed air is going to try to throw me off a platform that hangs 300 meters above a training pit designed to look like open space. I have trained for this moment for 11 months. I have never actually done it. I plant my boot against a support strut and grab the rail, and the wind hits me like a fist. It is not real wind. It is simulated atmosphere loss, pumped through vents disguised as decoration, but my body does not know the difference, and neither does my heart, which is currently trying to escape through my ribs. Somewhere behind the observation glass, I know Karan is watching, my instructor, a decorated Thessaran officer with skin like cut crystal and a face that never quite manages an expression a human can read. He told me not to do this. He told me kindly, which somehow made it worse. No human has ever finished the gauntlet, not one. In the 400 years since the Coalition built it, I am about to find out why. The setup 3 days earlier, I was standing in a corridor lined with polished stone, watching a leaderboard scroll past names I could not pronounce. Thessaran names, Vel names, Ashkir names, always 3 joined together, because the Ashkir do nearly everything in triplets, bonded through a kind of shared nervous system that lets 3 cadets move like one creature with 6 arms. I was the only human standing in that corridor. There are only 3 of us in this entire cohort, out of 200 cadets. Daniel Price flies logistics routes. Grace Ellery runs communications. And I signed up for combat trials, which nobody in this academy had ever seen a human do. Corin found me there, arms folded, his crystalline shoulders catching the light in sharp, cold lines. "You are not on this list," he said, nodding at the gauntlet leaderboard, "because no human has ever qualified to attempt it." "I want to try," I said. "Cadet Voss." He said my name slowly, like he was choosing his words the way a surgeon chooses an incision. "I have served 2 centuries. I have watched Thessaran cadets with reinforced skeletal armor fail this course. I have watched Vel cadets with 4 arms and perfect coordination fail this course. Do you understand what I am telling you? You're telling me it's hard. I am telling you, it is designed to defeat exactly the kind of strength your body does not have, and none of the kind it does." I almost asked him what kind of strength he thought I had. I didn't, because I wasn't sure I knew the answer either. Instead, I told him about my brother. His name was Ethan. He served on a Coalition supply route 2 years ago, in a skirmish that humans were never supposed to be part of, in a war most of Earth still doesn't know the details of. I don't talk about it much. I told Corin only the shape of it, not the weight, because the weight is mine to carry, not his to witness. "I want to know exactly what these people can do," I said, "before I ever have to stand beside them, or against them." Corin looked at me for a long moment, then he signed the authorization without another word. "Why it is impossible. Here is the thing about the gauntlet that nobody explains to you until you are already falling through it. It is not a test of strength, it is not a test of speed. Every species that walks into that arena assumes it is, and every species is wrong. The course reads you. Sensors buried in the walls track your heart rate, your muscle response, your reaction timing, and within the first 90 seconds it builds a private model of exactly how your body wants to solve problems. Then it turns that model against you. A Thessaran cadet walks in wearing skin like armor plating, nearly impossible to pierce, and the course responds by throwing obstacles that require precision instead of durability, over and over, until the very thing that makes them nearly invincible becomes irrelevant. A Vel cadet walks in with 4 arms moving in flawless rhythm, and the course finds a way to jam 1 limb, turning 4 points of coordination into 3 points of confusion. An Ashkir trio walks in linked mind to mind, and the course spikes fear into one of them, letting panic bleed through the bond until all 3 are drowning in the same terror. Every species has an advantage. Every advantage becomes a trap. Humans do not have an advantage the course can find, because we were never built around one single spectacular trait. We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. Our senses are, by every measurable galactic standard, unremarkable. I used to think that made us the weakest species in this academy. I was about to learn it made us something the course had never had to plan for. The run begins Cumbristack. The first obstacle is a corridor of shifting gravity plates, each one flipping the floor to the ceiling without warning, and I watch a recording later of how Thessaran cadets handle it, gripping the walls with crystalline claws, riding the flips like it is nothing. I do not have claws. I have fingers that ache after 30 seconds of holding onto a railing, and lungs that burn twice as fast as any Vel in this arena. So I stop trying to grip the walls. I let myself fall. Each time the gravity flips, I curl into the fall instead of fighting it, using the half-second of free fall to redirect toward the next platform, landing hard, rolling through the impact instead of bracing against it. It is clumsy. It is not elegant. My shoulder screams every time I hit the ground, but I am moving forward, and the sensors in the walls, I imagine, are trying to figure out what kind of creature solves a problem by refusing to solve it the intended way. The second section is worse. A field of drones, small and fast, programmed to track reflex speed and strike at the exact half-second before a cadet expects it. I watch the readout on my wrist display flicker as the course studies me, and I know it is building a profile, learning that my reactions are, compared to everyone else who has ever stood here, slow. So I stop reacting. Instead, I watch the pattern. 3 drones, sweeping in a rotation, always circling back to the same 6 points in the room. I count the rhythm under my breath. 4 seconds, 6 seconds, 4 seconds again, and instead of dodging each strike as it comes, I move to where the drones will not be, arriving there before they do. It is not fast. It is not impressive. It works. By the time I clear the drone field, my hands are shaking and there is a thin line of blood on my forearm from a strike I did not fully avoid. I keep moving anyway, because stopping to check the damage would cost me more time than the wound itself. Somewhere above me, behind glass I cannot see through, I imagine Koran watching the readout with an expression I still would not be able to read even if I could see it. The middle stretch. The next section is the one I was warned about most. A sealed chamber with no visible exit, filled with a slow, creeping cold that the Academy calls a simulated coolant breach. It is designed to test endurance under extreme temperature, and every species handles cold differently. Thesserin crystal becomes brittle. Vel muscle tissue seizes. Ashkir triplets lose their bond entirely. Because fear spreads faster than warmth ever could, humans get cold too. We just happen to be extremely good at being miserable for a long time and still moving. I keep my arms tucked, my breathing slow and controlled, counting my own heartbeat instead of the falling temperature reading on the wall. I do not look for a fast solution because there isn't one. I simply keep walking the perimeter of the chamber, methodically, checking every panel, every seam, refusing to let the cold decide how quickly I search. It takes me 4 minutes to find the hidden exit panel, disguised as a support strut near the floor. 4 minutes is a long time to stand in simulated freezing air. My fingers do not want to work anymore by the time I pry the panel open, but they do work, because I do not let them stop. I later learned that most cadets who reach this chamber panic within the first 90 seconds. The temperature itself is not what defeats them, the waiting is. Then the course does something I was not prepared for. The final trap. The wall ahead of me shifts, and for a moment I think it is another obstacle, some new physical challenge waiting to test my aching shoulder or my slow reflexes. Instead, the wall becomes a screen. It shows me names. Cadets who attempted this same stretch of the gauntlet, standing exactly where I am standing now, in this exact chamber. Beneath each name, a short readout, the moment their vital signs failed, the exact second the simulation recorded their attempt ending badly enough that instructors pulled them out. I do not recognize most of the names. I recognize one. It is not a human name. It is a name from 2 years ago, a supply route skirmish. A name I have read once before on a different wall. A memorial wall on a different planet, standing beside my brother's name, because they served the same route, the same day, the same mission, that humans were never meant to be part of. For a moment I cannot move. The chamber feels colder than the coolant breach ever did, and I stand there with my hand still on the panel, my breath fogging in front of me, thinking about the last message Ethan ever sent me. 3 words long, nothing dramatic, just a joke about the food on his ship that I have read so many times I could recite it in my sleep. I think about how easy it would be to stop here. Nobody would blame me. No human has ever gotten this far. Simply reaching this chamber would already be more than anyone expected of me. Then I think about the rest of that message, the part I never told Koran, the part where Ethan said he was proud that I was trying for the Academy at all, even though everyone back home thought it was a foolish thing for a human to attempt. I take my hand off the panel. I keep walking. The reveal. The final stretch of the gauntlet is not one obstacle. It is all of them at once. Gravity plates flipping beneath moving drones while the temperature keeps dropping. A chaotic combination designed to break whatever pattern a cadet has managed to build across the earlier chambers. I do not have a clean solution. I do not have elegant footwork or perfect timing. What I have is 11 months of training and 3 chambers worth of stubborn, ugly improvisation, and I use all of it at once, falling instead of gripping, watching instead of reacting, walking instead of panicking, stringing together every clumsy trick that got me this far because none of them, individually, were ever meant to be enough. A drone catches my leg near the end. I feel it as a sharp burn rather than real pain. The training system calibrated to simulate injury without actually causing one, and I stumble, catch myself on a railing with fingers that barely still work, and pull myself the last 10 meters to the exit hatch on momentum and stubbornness alone. The hatch opens. Light floods in. I fall through it onto solid, unmoving floor, and for a long moment I simply lie there, breathing, listening to my own heartbeat instead of any alarm. The room beyond is silent, not the comfortable silence of an empty space, but the heavy silence of 200 cadets who were not expecting to see what they just saw. I push myself up slowly. My shoulder aches. My forearm still stings where the drone caught me earlier. I am not graceful. I am not impressive. I am simply standing in a room full of cadets whose bodies were built for exactly this kind of trial, and I am the only one who finished it. Coron steps through the crowd first. He does not offer congratulations, which somehow does not surprise me. Instead, he asks for my full biometric readout, the complete record of every decision my body made across 4 chambers, and I hand it over because I understand, watching his crystalline face catch the light in a way I still cannot fully read, that he is not looking at a victory. He is looking at a question he has never had to ask in 2 centuries of service. Your reaction speed, he says slowly, scrolling through data on a screen only he can see, was the slowest recorded in this academy's history for a completed run. I know. Your physical output was, at every measured point, below the minimum threshold this course was designed around. I know that too. He looks up at me, and for the first time since I have known him, I think I finally recognize the expression on his face. It is not pity. It is not admiration either, not exactly. It is closer to the look of someone recalculating a number they had assumed was fixed for 400 years. Then explain to me, he says, how you are standing here. I think about the fall through the gravity chamber, curling into it instead of fighting it. I think about the drone field, counting rhythm instead of chasing speed. I think about the coolant chamber, refusing to let cold decide how fast I searched. I think about the wall of names, and the one name I recognized, and the choice I made after seeing it. Because none of it ever needed to be fast, I say. It just needed to keep going. Coron does not answer immediately. He turns the screen toward the rest of the room instead, letting the readout play across the main display for every cadet present to see. The full, unglamorous record of a run that broke every efficient pattern this course had been built to expect. Reflection and what follows, I did not set a record time. I did not move with anything close to the precision the other cadets in this academy carry as naturally as breathing. What I did was refuse to let the gauntlet's rules decide when I was finished, because those rules were built around bodies that had never needed to fail constantly and adapt anyway. That is not a strength most species need to develop. Crystalline armor does not need patience. 4 coordinated arms do not need stubbornness. A shared mental bond does not need the particular, quiet skill of standing alone in freezing air, counting your own heartbeat, and simply refusing to stop moving. Humans needed all of it. For longer than any of us can remember, long before any of us ever looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. I did not walk into that arena with a better body. I walked in with a body that had never once been given the luxury of quitting when things got difficult, and it turns out that particular kind of stubbornness does not show up on any biometric scan. Coron tells me later, in the quiet of his office, that the Academy has spent 400 years measuring elite status by peak physical performance, because every species that ever attempted the gauntlet before humans arrived was built around some singular, spectacular trait worth measuring. He admits, carefully, the way someone admits a mistake they are not yet fully comfortable naming, that the Academy may have missed an entire category of capability, one that does not announce itself through strength or speed, but only shows up when everything else has already failed. I do not feel like a hero standing in that office. I feel tired and cold, and my shoulder still aches every time I move it the wrong way. But I also feel, for the first time since I arrived at this academy, that I am not simply being tolerated inside these walls. Word travels fast through a place like this. By the next morning, standing in the same stone corridor where Coron once told me I could not attempt the gauntlet at all, I find a line forming outside the registration terminal. Daniel Price is standing in it, arms crossed, trying very hard to look like he has not been nervous about this for years. Grace Ellery stands beside him, reading the same leaderboard I once stared at with nothing but names I could not pronounce. I do not know yet whether this is the beginning of respect, or simply the beginning of curiosity that will fade the moment the next difficult trial arrives. I only know that yesterday, the idea of a human finishing that course was considered impossible by every species that has ever built or attempted it. Today, there is a line of us waiting to try again.